Hello and good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 26, 2021. I now call the Reapportionment Commission meeting to order. Mr. Quadilla, please proceed with roll call.
Commissioner Caparros, Commissioner Douglas, Commissioner Hussey Burdick,
Present.
Commissioner Lau,
Present.
Commissioner Mao, Commissioner Quevedo Jr.,
Present.
Commissioner Shigemasa,
Present.
Commissioner Singh,
Present.
Chair Iona.
Present.
7 members present, Chair.
We do have a quorum. We will proceed as scheduled. Pursuant to Governor David Ige's emergency proclamation related to the COVID-19 Delta response issued on October 1st, 2021, relating to the COVID-19 pandemic, in order to allow public participation in a manner consistent with safe practices and social distancing requirements, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Remote oral testimony will be accepted on all items on the agenda, including the executive session items. Each speaker will be limited to a 3-minute presentation on all items. The following are some friendly reminders and tips. 1, as an attendee of the meeting, you are initially set with view-only privileges. Staff will bring you into the meeting at a time you are called to testify. Video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are also watching the proceeding on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you are called to testify. Excuse me. When the timer goes off, please conclude your remarks promptly. For those that may be joining us by telephone only, since I do not have your name, can you identify? I will identify you by the prefix of your phone number. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will close remote testimony. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available as public documents on the city's website. As a courtesy, please turn off your cell phones for the duration of the meeting. Mahalo. We will now proceed with agenda item 3, remote oral testimony. Testifiers, please be ready to testify as you are now on standby. Now, realizing that sometimes that technical issues do arise, I will give each testifier a few moments to try to resolve the minor connection issues. However, if those issues cannot be resolved, I will have to move on to the next person. When I call your name or phone prefix, please state your name for the record and the agenda item or items you are testifying on. As of right now, I believe we have 10 remote testifiers. Is that it? No? Okay, so we'll begin with the first person on the list, and that is Bronson Azama. No Bronson, okay. We'll move on to the second person on the list, Donald Sakamoto. For those of you who do not know, Mr. Sakamoto is a special needs person. So if we do have any interaction with him, could you please clearly speak into the microphone? Mr. Sakamoto.
Yes, thank you, Chair Iona, for allowing me to speak. My name is Donald Sakamoto. I'm a blind individual, and I also belong to the National Federation of Blind Hawaii, as well as National in Baltimore, Maryland. First, I would like to say that concerning the maps that are posted on the website, for a blind person like myself, it's very hard to read maps at all. So I will work closely with the commission as well as the city clerk to rectify the problem, how we can accommodate for people with special needs like myself. But going back to my testimony, I believe that the charter says that we have to do this reapportionment due to the census that was done in 2020. And it's very important that we have an evenly amount of people in the districts so that they can have the council members can have an equal amount of people voting in that district. So as a former Service Employee International Union member, as well as chief steward, as well as a large member for Local 556 here in Hawaii. We had a problem on the Marine base where we had to reduction of people working on the base, and that was a hard part. So I would recommend that the commission look thoroughly at how they reapportion the boundaries to make sure there's an even amount and not too many people affected. So that's my concern.
Okay, is that it, Mr. Sakamoto?
Yes, I think that's it, Chair. I think if I had more time to review the maps with some more description, but I just got into this commission appropriations recently, so I'm kind of new, but I listened to most of the meetings on the YouTube broadcast archives and was amazed at what you folks are doing with the public, and given what you have to do is, I commend you and the rest of the commissioners on a tough job with the clerk to do this, but I wish you all the best. Kudos, and just go for broke and do a great job for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sakamoto. Appreciate your contribution. The next speaker on the list is Richard Oshiro.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Mr. Chair, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Chair
We can see you
Iona,
now.
Chair Iona, Vice Chair Shigemasa, and members of the commission. My name is Richard Oshiro, and I have been a resident of Waipahu for the last 32 years. I have served on the Waipahu Neighborhood Board continuously since I moved there 32 years ago. Prior to that, I served for 6 years on the Makiki Neighborhood Board. Over these years, I have seen many council members and other elected officials who have served and who have tried to address and resolve the many issues and problems that their communities faced. They all have a difficult job. Sometimes we succeed and sometimes we do not. So we just need to keep trying and really just be persistent. 30 years ago, I also served on the Council Reapportionment Commission. And I recall that we tried to do two things. One, avoid disruption in new council districts so people would not see any big change in their life. And two, rebalance the council districts to reflect the change in populations. One big issue was trying to keep communities as intact as possible without splitting communities in ways that were disruptive. This commission was sued because its final plan at Waipahu touching 3 council districts. The Supreme Court ruled in the commission's favor since our work was solid and made sense. Not much has changed in the past 30 years, and we still have 9 council districts with a similar configuration today. In looking at the current proposed maps, the most promising is the Kaena Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 2, since it appears to be the least disruptive and does an excellent job of balancing the districts based on population, so the Commission should adopt this plan. The modified existing districts plan keeps the same council districts intact, but does not rebalance the council districts based on population. It has the highest overall deviation of 6.82%. I believe the Commission should not adopt this plan. The Kaena Makapu'u Plan Draft 1, titled Public Hearing Amendment, has, I believe, a glaring flaw. It combines Pearl City and Mililani into one district. This may be good for Mililani. However, it carves out a good chunk of Waipahu that includes Village Park, Royal Kunia, and Waikele out of its current council district and places it into a council district that includes Wahiawa, Mokuleia, Waialua, Haleiwa, Kahuku, Laie, Ha'ula, and Kahalu. Council members already have large districts that may include urban, suburban, or rural communities that may have vastly different interests and concerns. If this plan is adopted, it would make the job of that council member a lot more difficult than it already is. For example, going to a meeting from Kunia to Kahaluu is harder than going to a meeting from Waihawa to Kahaluu. If you make the job of this council member more difficult, you could shortchange one community over another. This proposed plan makes no sense, and the commission should not adopt it. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts, and thanks to all of you for your service on this commission. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer
Go
any
right ahead.
questions you have.
Good evening, Mr. Oshiro. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for your comments and for your service in as you mentioned, the 1991 Commission. Hearing your testimony, you testified that in the past 30 years, nothing really much has changed with the similar configuration today. Are you aware that in 1991, Mililani was in the same district, and District 3 went from East Honolulu to parts of Kailua?
I don't recall the specifics of it. I do know that the basic configuration hasn't changed that much. The Waipahu district, for example, as I mentioned, touched 3 districts. The district that ran from Makaha all the way to Makakilo, Kapolei, touched one edge of Waipahu. The other came from the north, which was Central Oahu, that touched one edge of Waipahu, and the other came from the other end from Pro City. So we ended up with 3 council members. That's basically why the commission was sued after our work was done by, if you recall, Senator Cal Kawamoto was the person that sued the commission.
Thank you so much.
So Cheryl, thank you very much. We really appreciate your input. You give us some history and some wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next testifier on the list, Marion Poirier.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Commissioners, my name is Marion Poirier, and I'm an original homeowner in Mililani and have loved the community and worked in leadership roles in the community over the years. My children have attended school here, and I really care very much about our community. And when I saw the new map that unites Mauka and town, I was delighted. I believe that this is critical to Mililani being the strong voice that it can be in Oahu. And I relish the invitation to have the joint Mililani. Pearl City and also the new Koa Ridge development, which will add like about 3,000 homes. All this in that map is included, and I really support this. So I hope that we'll be able to move that forward, and I think you'll be very pleased if you work towards that end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do want to mention one thing because this is the second time that you've done this. I didn't mention anything the last time, but my last name is Iona, not Akiona.
Thank
So I
you.
think that makes a difference, and I would appreciate it if you got that correct the next time you do address myself as the chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person on the list is Jacob Aki.
Aloha, Chair.
Hello.
Can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Reapportionment Commission. My name is Jacob Aki, and here on behalf of Common Cause. First, Common Cause did submit testimony before today's meeting, but just wanted to highlight a few points. First, we really wanted to applaud the Commission for really taking into consideration the testimony of the public in creating the Kaena Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 1 public hearing amendment. There was overwhelming testimony to unify the Mililani Town and Mililani Mauka District, and Common Cause believes that this map fairly reflects the testimony and the opinions of those who testified. Second, Common Cause would also like to provide testimony and to propose that the numbering of the new proposed districts closely resemble, to the best of the Commission's ability, the districts as they are currently drawn, to ensure that, at least from a public standpoint, there isn't too much changes that may cause confusion to the public. A third, Common Cause would also like to recommend, as others have testified or submitted written testimony for, that after the reapportionment and redistricting process, every district be subject to open elections, similar to what's done at the state level after every reapportionment and redistricting year. And also, Common Cause would also like to recommend that that in the final recommendation, that a charter amendment be considered to detail that incarcerated people be counted at their home addresses as of the census date. Finally, Common Cause would also like to thank the Commission and staff for providing meeting materials in a timely fashion, as it was very helpful to allow the public to effectively weigh in on the Commission's work. And furthermore, to thank the commissioners again for the time spent working on this for the benefit of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I am available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, Chair.
Yes. I don't know if you were privy to, I believe Mr. Cudilla responded to Ms. Ma's email regarding the second point. And I'm not sure if that was what was meant by your point number 2. We used the letters as opposed to the numbers, but the numbers are still there. In other words, we didn't exchange the numbers for letters. So I don't know if that's was the concern. So nothing has changed.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing has changed. And I think that's what the email stated to Ms. Ma.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Arcade. Thank you for your input all these past meetings. Appreciate it. The next person on the list is Trish La Chica.
Aloha, everyone. Good evening, Chair Iona, Vice Chair Shigemasa, and members of the Commission. My name is Trish La Chica, also a resident of Mililani Town, and a working mom that works in town, raising my kids that go to Mililani schools. Along with Marion, we serve on many community leadership positions together. And have a deep love for our community. Just wanted to express my appreciation and commend the Commission for hearing the voices of Mililani residents. When we started kind of getting involved in the process, I had shared the process with Mililani residents, but without influencing whether or not they wanted Mililani to be united or whether they continued to support the split, but letting them know it is an opportunity to share what they thought about the maps, and was really surprised but also heartened to see just the community unifying on this together. And just wanted to commend the Commission for listening to the community. As Marian mentioned, the I also support the member draft, Kaena Makapu'u member draft 1 amendment that would unify Mililani Town, Mauka, and Waipio Acres together. But it also includes the last remaining development of Koa Ridge for our community. As you know, Mililani Town in the 1970s, and then Mililani Mauka in the 90s, and then now Koa Ridge, which will share the same resources and school districts as Mililani and Pearl City. And with that, I believe that we do belong in the same, and we'll have the same community characteristics and would really benefit from having a strong voice. So mahalo again for the opportunity to testify.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Machiko. Like Marion Poirier, I'm going to point this out because this is the second time that this has happened to me, but you pronounced my name correctly orally, but on your email, it once again says Akiona. My last name is Iona and not Akiona. And I'd appreciate it if you would get it right the next time, if there is a next time when I'm addressed in this position. Thank you. Next person on the list is Kimiona Kane.
Aloha Chair, ano ai me ke aloha ia kākou o Kimiona Keia. Aloha Chair Iona, Vice Chair Shigemasa, Commissioners, General Public. Mahalo nui no keia halavai. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity this evening to speak. I'm Kimiona from Waimanalo. I'm here to speak on the support that I have of the Kaena Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment. I think I stand in kāko'o of other testifiers that I really appreciate the Commission's stab at the initial plans and then hearing the community and bringing that together in a format that allows the best representation of the communities. For our district, I'm really happy to see that we're no longer notched over into the Hawaii Kai community, as it would continuously impact just the general fabric of our communities. And so wanted to mahalo the commission for hearing that and making the adjustments to that. Chair, if I may, I also wanted to share my concern about the charter as well. As previously stated by, I believe, the testifier, Jacob Key, I do have concerns about how the charter is written. In my ignorance, 188 pages of that charter was a lot to take in. So the specific sections 16-122, 3-102, and also into 3-103, really, I think, should support the ideas of reapportionment years being open for the council to be also included in re-election. And then lastly, just my kāko'o to the communities that have been speaking out on behalf of their communities. We're here to continuously work together, and certainly want to appreciate everyone's hard work. So mahalo nui, Chair, mahalo to the commission, mahalo to the public.
Thank you,
My
Mr.
testimony. Mahalo.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Kane. Thank you for your input. Really appreciate it. The next person on the list is Bart Dame.
Hello. After Jacob Aki spoke, I felt like I didn't need to say anything. And then Trish LaChica spoke up and I said, okay, double down, I can be quiet. And then with Kimiona Kane, it's like, why am I speaking except I like talking? I want to echo virtually everything that they said. I can act like a know-it-all on some subjects, so I get hesitant to try to comment on where the line should be in neighborhoods that I'm not quite as familiar as other people. However, my preference is towards, one is the way the process has allowed for interaction between the public and committee members and the modification of plans as we've gone along. And I really, really applaud you guys for your exemplary work. I like, with the others, I like the public hearing amendment, whatever it is, draft 1, I think, of the Kaena Makapu'u plan. And in addition to unifying Mililani, which frankly, when I was hearing all the testimony from Mililani people, I was thinking they were dreaming, that, somebody's got to lose, but it looks like this map makes it so they don't lose. And there was concern expressed before about the area around Heia Kahalu. And I believe that this map also goes towards healing that division there too, and making them whole. So I want to thank you guys for the work you're doing, and I hope that you can support that plan. But I also want to focus on the proposed charter amendment, or the talk that you folks should perhaps recommend that there be an amendment to the charter to get rid of what I think is an absurd sort of process and use the state model of what happens with the state senators and how they retain staggered terms, but they all have to stand for re-election either for 2 or 4 years at the end of their right after every reapportionment. And I was surprised to learn from Daniel Douglas's comments that that was not the case in the city charter. And so I think that ought to be straightened out, and that problem should be fixed. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Question. Thank you, Mr. Dane. We appreciate your input, all of these meetings. Our next testifier is Flora Obayashi.
Aloha, Chair Iona.
Hello.
Vice Chair Shigemasa, and commissioners, members of the commission. Again, my name is Flora Obayashi, testifying on agenda item 1, and I live in Kahaluu. I've served on the neighborhood board for the last 10 years, representing food production interests, watershed protection, and Wahipana on this site. As the work of the 2021 Council Reapportionment Commission draws to a close, I wish to express my deepest appreciation for your sincere efforts and the many hours you've given to the decision-making process of fair apportionment of representation to the residents of our island. I am satisfied that the process was conducted ethically, respectfully, and with aloha. I am satisfied that the commission gave serious consideration and import to the quality of life and the strength of citizen voice for the next 10 years. As an individual, I ask that the Ka'ena Makapu Plan Member Draft 2 is approved and passed by the commissioners this evening. Draft 2, in my view, is the best map that ensures representation for the rural areas of Oahu. I advocate for specifically for the Kahaluu farmers that supply fresh produce to the Waikiki restaurants and farmers markets. I would like to underscore Richard Oshiro's testimony. Once again, mahalo nui for the opportunity to testify and for your service as our 2021 reapportionment commissioners. Aloha.
Aloha, Mrs. Obayashi. This is Commissioner Shigemasa. Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm looking here at your testimony and what you orally mentioned in the Ka'ena Makapu Member Draft 2 plan. And you talked about advocating for that plan on behalf of the Kahaluu farmers. In the Member Draft 1 public hearing amendment, were you able to review that plan and see that the same lines in districts B and C are kept as they are in Member Draft 2 in the public hearing amendment?
Once again, I am caught. The first time Commissioner.
Would you, I guess the question would be, would you, being that in that community, the lines are kept the same between B and C, would you be in support of the public hearing amendment? Because it mirrors exactly what Member Draft 2 has in that community.
Oh, if it's the same, that's fine. I just don't feel that it's appropriate for Kahaluu to be placed in the adjoining urban communities of Kaneohe, and Kailua. I think the rural nature of our community is more strongly oriented towards representation in the North Shore area. We share the same interests as North Shore farmers, and we understand that we may be the last two areas on the island with important food production.
Thank you so much for your clarification and for your testimony. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ms. Obayashi. Thank you for your input for these past meetings. The next person on the list is Becky Gardner.
Hi, I'm trying to turn on my camera. Or maybe it's disabled. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, no problem.
Disabled. Yes, aloha, Commissioner, or Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. My name is Becky Gardner. I'm submitting my testimony on behalf of myself as Principal and Founder of Policy Matters, LLC. Chair Iona, I appreciate your concern with your name. A lot of people want to say Gardner, and they will send emails to Gardner, and I just never get it. So, so I understand. But I had submitted my testimony maybe an hour ago, so I apologize it's late. I know it's supposed to be in there before 10, but you might want to look at that testimony because at the end of it, I provide, just for your easy reference, some of the language from the charter and also language from our Hawaii State Constitution on the staggering of Senate terms as it relates to my testimony. I'm here to pretty much focus on 2 points. The first is to express my support for the Kaina Makapu Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment. And that's a mouthful, so if it's okay, I'm just going to refer to it as Plan D because it's the 4th one on your agenda or on your website. I think it's the most recent one. And the second thing I want to talk about is my recommendation that you look to the state constitution for the staggering of Senate terms to recommend changes to the county charter on how to stagger terms in the future. First, as to my first point, I was involved in, I guess you would call them like focus groups. I'm a member of the Kaimuki Neighborhood Board, and I was participating in these sort of research groups for Act 15, which is a function of the county on creating, Action 15, on creating community resiliency hubs. And through that, we were talking a lot about gathering places, distribution of resources, dissemination of information in the event of a disaster. And, I was just thinking a lot about how the ahupua'a system, from our cultural past, would serve well in that function. And then looking at the county maps, they do pretty much track the ahupua'a system, and looking at the 4 maps before you, I think this Plan D best approaches it. I do believe that of all the maps, districts E and F have the least amount of shoreline, and I think Plan D has the greatest amount of shoreline. And for that reason, I think it would just give people greater access. I'm thinking about sort of apocalyptic things now. We had that missile crisis a couple years ago. We're in a pandemic. I think it's important for us to think in the future and what's going to best serve our residents and how we're going to deal with disaster response. So I think as best we can, if we can track a ahupua'a type plan, I think it's going to be best for our residents and the relationships that they have with their council members. As to my second point, it's come to my attention that the current charter language enables this commission to decide which districts will be running in 2022, despite clear language that directs the staggering of terms up to the 2004 elections. And it's strange to me that the charter did not contemplate how this would be handled in reapportionments subsequent to 2001. It seems that since the commission has the power to number the districts in any way they see fit, it could potentially allow some council members to sit for a 6-year term from the 2018 election and others for a 2-year term from the 2020 election. I believe that the charter should be amended to close these loopholes and avoid an imbalanced result like this and prevent the possibility of exploitation and abuse in the future. So accordingly, I would respectfully request this commission to make those recommendations for charter amendments so it more closely tracks the process outlined in the state constitution for the staggering of senators. And for your reference, I included the language from the charter and the state constitution at the end of my testimony, but I'll just give you the citation. The state constitution is Article 4, Section 7 and Section 8 for election of senators and staggered terms for the Senate. And then the charter citations are Section 16-122 and then a little bit of Section 3-103. So please take a look at my testimony if you wanted to see more specifics, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Ms. Gardner.
Your mic is not on.
It's not on. Oh, Ms. Gardner. Commissioner
Okay, there
Douglas
you go.
here. Thank you for your testimony. Did you notice on what you call the Plan D, the Ka'ena-Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment, did you notice that Ahupua'a was eliminated from Council District 9?
I can look at it. Let's see here, Google Maps, Plan D. Okay, so 9 is which area now?
That would be the Eva Beach, Iroquois Point, Waipahu. Yeah, on the other maps, all the other draft maps, there was, at least that went to public hearing, that had Ahupua'a from the eastern facing Waianae Range. Have you noticed that now?
Yeah, I see it now. I'm putting the 2011 district boundaries on top. Well, I live in Kaimuki, so I'm sort of focused on the east side, but I do see what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So strike my testimony with respect to that area, I guess, in that sense. But I understand you have a lot of things that you need to balance, especially with the population counts. But I'm pretty focused on, I guess, what did I say, E and F, that very narrow shoreline around the Waikiki area, eastern Honolulu, but not over towards Diamond Head, Hawaii Kai.
Okay. I have a question. Since you're focusing on Ahupua'a, how much agriculture is done in your district that you know of? How much agricultural activity is done around you?
Palolo Valley, I know people have some farms up there. I know someone has a banana farm up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all.
Ms. Gardner, thank you very much. Appreciate your input. And we did receive your testimony. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
The next person on the list is Heidi Suneyoshi.
Aloha and good evening, Chair Iona, Vice Chair Shigemasa, and Commissioners for the Reapportionment Commission. First, I just wanted to thank you so much for all your hard work and your public service to our communities in bringing these plans forward to this point. I truly appreciate all your time spent and all the efforts that you all have made together. This evening, I did want to talk about the plans moving forward and specifically to Agenda Item 5 as you move forward into the adoption of the final redistricting plan. I've been following the meetings. I apologize for not having been able to be a part of meetings up to this point, and was in strong support and continue to be in strong support of the modified plan, as was stated by Mr. Oshiro previously, which he very eloquently stated, that the goal of redistricting, especially now during these critical times, is to avoid disruption and to address and balance population growth. I have strong concerns with regard to the Ka'ena-Makapu'u plan, that is the public hearing amendment, as it does create an unnatural boundary in the areas of districting and creates what is basically a horseshoe around Mililani. So as we look to what the goal is to create contiguous areas of representation, the public hearing amendment does create a very unusual shape, again, a horseshoe around Mililani. And while I appreciate and understand those who have called in from Mililani, the goal to be unified as one area. As you may or may not know, Mililani town is broken up not only in council representation with 2 council members, but also 2 neighborhood boards, the Mililani Town Neighborhood Board and the Mililani Malka Neighborhood Board. And both boards have separate representation from the state level with senator and representative, as well as with the council. So Mililani currently has, as was just stated, the distinction in representation between Mililani Town and Malka. And as I can appreciate the request to bring Mililani Town together, I do believe that currently is not the time to do that in the way that it's being done now, creating that horseshoe again around Mililani, which creates a very big disruption for communities such as Waikele, who have just moved through the election process and have a council member assigned to their district, and they are going to be thrown into upheaval in having now new representation possibly with this plan. As was mentioned previously, the current action before you is to make decision based on the census data that you have received from the last census count, the 2020. As we know, moving forward, there's going to be huge changes in our census as we anticipate the population growth in Koa Ridge and Ho'opili and other communities on that side of the island. So to join Mililani Town together seems more appropriate at the next redistricting opportunity, as at that time, we can align the population growth with Koa Ridge and Ho'opili and make very distinctive boundaries at that time. Currently now, again, as it is moving forward, with not having those population numbers to account for in the drawing of the boundaries, we have in that Kaena Makapu Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment created a horseshoe around a community, which does provide for some very unusual representation for that district. So I would really, again, highly support the modified plan or the Kaena Makapu Plan Member Draft 2 as stated by Mr. Oshiro, while appreciating Mililani residents who have called in to be unified as one town. I do believe that is very close and near in the making, and with our next census count, I do believe that it'll be an opportunity to create a new district contiguous with Koa Ridge numbers and other numbers on that side. So we have more alignment and more clearly defined boundaries moving forward. Again, Chair, Vice Chair, and members, thank you for all your work in what you've done to this point and look forward to your final outcome. Aloha.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Tsuneyoshi. We appreciate your comments. The next person on the list is Rhiannon Callahan. Is that correct? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, did I get that correct? Is it Rhiannon Callahan?
Yes, you got it correct.
Okay, go right ahead. We can hear you.
I just wanted to also say that I support the new plan. A lot of the points that were stated earlier, I am also in support of that as well. I'm from the Waimanalo community, so I'm very happy with this this new plan that came out. Mahalo.
Did you say you're from Wahiwa? Is that what I heard?
No, Waimanalo.
Oh, Waimanalo. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for your input. The next person on the list is Ingrid Peterson.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi. Yes, Ingrid Peterson. Aloha, Chairman Iona and commissioners. I'm from Kailua since 1963 when my parents moved here when I was a little kid. And decades ago, my mother was on Kailua Neighborhood Board and helped create Kalama Beach Park. So there was more public access for all. And I also really like this new map, the public hearing amendment map to draft one Ka'ena and Makapu'u. For the windward side, I really love that Ahui Manu is all together and with Kaneohe, whereas Kahalu, both Makai and Mauka, is unified and with the other Windward North Shore district, so that Kahalu is with Waihole, Waikani, Kahuku, North Shore areas that do have more of agriculture and just a different type of community. And while I'm talking about agriculture, I just have to add, when you were questioning, I've forgotten who, Becky Gardner about Kaimuki. My husband used to live on a farm way back in Palolo. There's agriculture there, especially way back on La'i Road. It's like you're going to a neighbor island decades ago when you go back there. Anyway, the other things I like about the plan, that even though the one district is an ahupua'a, most of them are. So all of them touch the ocean at least. One doesn't touch the mountain. And I really love the way that the commissioners listen to the community and unify Mililani. I don't think Mililani should have to wait another 10 years to have the Mauka and the main part, I don't know, I guess you call it Makai, touches Pearl Harbor, as one. And I think people have talked about how they share a school district and other things. And I think other things have been fixed. Like there was something weird about Manoa Valley that got fixed. Anyway, I really love the way it's been amended and improved. And as far as the way it is now, where after reapportionment, term limits can vary from 2 years to 6, I agree with several others who said that I really believe that needs to be amended and fixed so that the term limits are more equitable, not only for the city council members, but for the citizens they are representing. So aloha to you all. Mahalo nui.
Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. The next person on the list is Braden Wilkerson.
Hello, Chair Iona, and hello, other members of the commission. I wanted to testify tonight on several things, primarily in support of the Ka'ena Makapu'u Member Draft Plan 1. It's the Plan D, as has been referenced earlier tonight. It's not lost on me, given attending the other hearings, that this plan would otherwise not have existed unless Vice Chair Shigemasa had made the effort, despite the contention last hearing, to publish this. So please know that we appreciate the effort that you made subsequent to the hearing to do that and to take in public input. It, at least in my reading or my understanding so far, has been the most popular map and otherwise would not exist. So I want to address a couple things. I do think that the current plan, or the new plan that was proposed, the member draft 1 plan, or Plan D, which I thought was pretty funny, actually is sufficient, in my opinion, with dealing with all of the previous issues that were raised and correcting sort of the Mililani Mauka sort of debate, clears up stuff over in Windward Oahu with Ahui Manu and Kahalu, preserves really Ewa as a whole community with Waipahu, and just follows, in my mind, pretty standard and pretty basic. I think it's an exemplary map for dealing with redistricting, and that it kept communities contiguous and compact, preserves communities of similar interests, and used identifiable or recognized and distinct landmarks to create district boundaries. It also, to date, is the plan that had the lowest deviation, I believe at I think it was like 3.3%. So all the way around, I think it was an amazing plan that you put together. So we commend you out in the public for that. I did want to also speak in support of some of the other comments around the proposed charter amendments And just so everyone knows, if you haven't done the homework, if the commission were to adopt the numbering system from District A, which is currently District 1, in a clockwise fashion, with North Shore being 2, Windward Oahu being 3, and in like fashion, that would actually not create any disruption in the existing council election system with those who are being termed out and those currently on council. There would need to be additional work done to amend the charter. But if the commission were to follow that method of reallocating the numbers, there would be no major disruption to the existing body and would maintain the cycle while we work on a charter amendment. And again, I do support a charter amendment to fix that with everyone. So I hope that you guys take that up, whether it's in this hearing or not. But again, appreciate it, in support of member draft plan 1 for all of the previously stated reasons.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Okay, I believe there are no other remote testifiers. Accordingly, we will close the remote oral testimony for all agenda items. We'll now move on to agenda item number 4, approval of minutes. We have 3 minutes from 3 different hearings to approve at this time, from September 28th, 2021, October 7th, and October 11th. I hope you all had a chance to review those minutes. Any questions, any discussions on those minutes? If not, may I have a motion to approve the minutes for September 28th, 2020?
Chair, Commissioner Douglas, I move to adopt the minutes.
Okay, let me finish. December 28th, 2021, the regular meeting, October 7th and October 11th, 2021, the public hearings.
I move to adopt those minutes.
Okay, any second?
Mr. Chair, I second the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Anybody disapprove of the minutes or the motion? Say aye, say nay. There being no nays, the motion passes. The minutes for September 28th, 2021, October 7th, and October 11th public hearings 2021 have been approved. Okay, we now move on to agenda item number 5, which is new business. Now, pursuant to the agenda, at this time, we are going to review, discuss, and take action, if appropriate, on the comments that we've heard at the public hearings, as well as what we heard today. And I want to take up number A and number B at the same time, basically, because I believe that Vice Chair Shigimasa has submitted an amendment to his draft 1. And so, but if anybody else would like to proceed, we can proceed with that first. If there's anybody else who would like to review, make comments, or any action regarding what we heard from the public, and then we can take Vice Chair Shigimasa's proposals up after that.
Chair Iona, Commissioner Douglas, I have some comments to make regarding the public hearing testimony
Okay.
from the past 2.
Anybody have any amendments they want to take up besides Vice Chair Shigimasa? Okay, if not, then we'll go with the comments on what was testified.
Thank you, Chair. So Chair, public trust, and by the way, this might be our last night together, so I want to say to Chair Iona, commissioners, support staff, and Corporation Council here, this has been an honor serving with all of you, and all the best to you in all your endeavors. So going forward now, Chair Iona, public trust. We're working with the Honolulu Elections Division, and public trust is, some may say it's a myth. Some might say that it is a side issue. Some might say that it's a tool for power politically to move forward a personal agenda. But I don't think it's that. I think public trust is the reason that we're here. It's a real thing. and public trust is what we must build up in our county. Now, regarding the testimony at public hearings, in my estimation, I would estimate that 80 to 95% of the testifiers would be classified as sophisticated testifiers. And by sophisticated testifiers, I would say that they are neighborhood board chairs, neighborhood board members, a bit more savvy, partisan activists, candidates, prior candidates, we had a partisan policy director testify twice during the hearings and even again tonight. There's also friends of council members testified, possibly even family members that share the last name of one of our commissioners. And even tonight, we had a council member, but going back to the public hearings, we didn't have the council member testify. So these are sophisticated testifiers. Now, it's expected that this commission will draw sophisticated testifiers because of what's at stake for their personal, political ambition or interests. So what does that mean for us as a commission? Should we politically garner points or cash in or cash out with as much of these partisan special interests as possible and carve and recarve the maps based on our picking and choosing and interpretations? Let that not be so with our commission. For the sake of public trust, may we, with diligence, see through the jockeying and deal making and all that is ugly and distasteful and erodes the public trust of the general city and county of Honolulu citizenry that wants to believe that are decision makers. And that's us here, right here, that we are pursuing what best builds up this county as a whole. And that's why the sophisticated and especially the partisan sophisticated testifiers didn't impress me. What I was looking for in the public hearings chair and commissioners were testifiers who were less sophisticated, testifiers who represent more common and neighborly lives in our communities, because they and their families, whether they know it or not, are directly impacted by what we decide on tonight. Now, I really would have loved to see a testifier who got his or her mail-in ballot for the first time during the last election cycle, and because of all the craziness of 2020, started educating themselves and asking questions about the process to the point where we were at the public hearings. But instead, we listened to and were engaged with sophisticated testifiers with varying personal and partisan interests. Therefore, I implore you, Chair and commissioners, to do what's right, to peer and listen through the smoke and noise of the partisan, special interests, the takers, to do what builds the most trust with our county's overall citizenry and population. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Iona. Commissioner Lau. Okay. Again, I'd like to thank the fellow commissioners for your dedication to this process, and to Chair Iona for a strong hand and leading us on a timely basis to get to the point where we can at least have some time to consider and discuss a final proposed plan or whatever alteration that we may have. And to staff, Rex, and the election staff and Corporation Counsel's Office, thank you very much. I wanted to just remark that, or observe that the people who are interested in this are obviously the ones most likely to provide input. And it's up to us to consider it. But if we follow the oath that we took at the start of this process, we agreed, or we promised to implement the terms of the city charter. So the terms of the city charter, as several of the people have said, state in part subparagraph 3 of section 3-103 reapportionment and reapportionment years. In effecting reapportionment, the commission shall be guided by the following criteria. A, no district shall be drawn as to unduly favor a person or political faction. B, districts, insofar as practicable, shall be contiguous and compact. C, district lines shall, where possible, follow permanent and easily recognizable features, and when practicable, shall coincide with census tract boundaries. And we've heard this multiple times. And we're kind of at a crossroads because 3 of the 4 plans that are now before the commission are calling for a break from the modified existing plan. And if you look at the history of our reapportionment process, 1991, 2001, and 2010, the modified plan has really been the model followed. But now we're, what, 10, 20, 30 years later, and I don't think that the commissioners should be necessarily bound by that, to the extent that the concern is that it would create disruption or confusion. Because in effect, if we keep what's already there, what we're doing is, if that's the reason, then what we're doing is we're just unduly favoring the incumbent. And I think we as a body are tasked with looking at the numbers, looking at the census district locations where it makes sense to draw lines to even out the districts, so we can get one person, one vote. So I don't think we should feel constrained to keep what has been the mode for the last 30 years. What we should look at is what are the positives. What we should follow is what are the positives. If we discount everything that the testimony we've heard throughout these past several meetings, but look at ourselves and look at this, the 4 plans, which makes the most sense. Now, the modified, the plan amendment, could I refer to it, the plan hearing amendment? Someone referred to it as Plan D. It's Vice Chair Shigemasa's version.
Hey, for the record, I'd like to stick to what we have here. And so, I appreciate what you're going through. But it was, it's not, because it's not a new map. It's a proposed amendment. So it's actually, it would be amendment to Haena Makapu Plan Member Draft 1. That's what it would be.
Okay, just for the sake of brevity, I'll refer to it as the proposed amendment to District Plan 1. So I commend that to the rest of the commissioners, it does have the lowest deviation. The concerns expressed by others over, somehow shorting the voters from their ability to select their own commissioners, their own council members, I think is valid to the extent that it really should be corrected by a charter amendment, because the city charter already provides for the very effect, good or bad, that is giving rise to a concern. So we follow it. Our main job is to draw the district lines. If we feel it's unfair, we propose amendments to the city council to ask them to follow the state model as a means of evening out the playing field for all elected officials or all city council members. I don't think that should be the reason that we favor keeping status quo, which exists for the last 30 years. My only concern is that one version amendment to member draft, Kaena Makapu Plan member draft 1, is the objection raised by testifier Mr. Oshiro with regard to Waipahu. I don't quite understand that, and that would be my only concern, is seeing if that can be addressed as an amendment. I guess I am proposing an amendment. That would be a minor amendment, but I don't know.
Well,
if
what
that's
is the
possible.
amendment?
The amendment is to make whatever adjustment it is to the Waipahu line that is supposedly carving up Waipahu into 3 districts. Not to say that it hasn't been done before, and other districts such as the Mililani and Mililani Town, Mililani Mauka, Mililani Town have been subjected to this for the last 20 years or so. So I appreciate it. If it's possible, I would support that. But from an overall basis, I think I would commend the Kaena Makapu Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment as the map to focus on. Thank you.
Yeah, anybody else?
Commissioner Mao, may I make a comment to Commissioner Douglas and Commissioner Lau's statements? Both of their statements, I thought about very deeply also, because I was torn. We have people who, I hope I'm stating this correctly and nobody takes offense, but we had some very astute testimony and they're very good speakers. So, and then there's an ad on TV that we're trying to get internet access out to Kapuna that don't even have internet access. But I don't think we can discount everybody that took their time to present it. And I always try to read between the lines. And I did not find most of the statements to be very political, because this is not, I'm just taking who's in which district, trying to hear who's saying what. So I just like all the testimony that we got, and we cannot discount it because they took the time to do it. If you can read between the lines, then you can change one of these maps. With regards to Commissioner Lau's comments, when I first started this process, I was leaning towards the modified plan. But I also remember Vice Chair Shigemasu's statement, although this Kaena Makapu Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment October 26 is much more bold than your first one. So we were tasked and volunteered to come up with a plan, not necessarily to leave the status quo in, even though I kind of like the modified plan initially. But my final statement is, I don't know how long it took, but this Kayana Makapu Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment, October 26, 2021. Although I only got to really delve into it right now. I tried to look at it last night, but I only have an iPad. I think it addressed many of the concerns that were out there. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I agree. I also was torn between the public hearing statements and Commissioner Douglas's statements and Commissioner Miles' statements. I was supporting the draft one in the beginning until just recently. Well, just looking at the deviation numbers, that's part of our responsibility to, pay attention to the deviation numbers. And I think the decision that we make in this commission of this year should stand the strongest for, I guess, hope I'm saying this right, for the next 10 years. So the lowest deviation numbers tells me that whatever, if we, if that's standing right now with all of the development that might go on for the next 10 years, chances are it'll be in the best position with this deviation numbers that it's not going to exceed the 10% in 10 years. So I would commend the Commissioner Shigimasa's draft plan for the public hearing amendment. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My thoughts fall in line with Commissioner Lau. I am swayed by the low deviation. I think it accurately represents the population shift, and the point that was just made that, in the next 10 years, it's only going to shift more west. And I would think that the proposed public hearing amendment to member draft 1 would be the smartest way to go. I thought some of the testimony, the sophisticated testimony, was very helpful, very thoughtful. I did not hear or suspect anything in there that would fly in the face of the charter and what we are to look at and not look at. And I haven't heard any specifics on that. So if there's something there like gerrymandering that I just didn't catch, then I think I'd ask that be pointed out, because I didn't see any of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Hussey Burdick. First, just want to commend and appreciate Vice Chair Shigemasa for all of his hard work. I think that his proposed amendments are by far the most thoughtfully crafted plan that we have on the table. And also, Commissioner Lau made a really good plan, a well thought out, thoughtfully crafted plan as well. But then it was before the testimony that we heard that overwhelmingly wanted Mililani Town put with Mililani Mauka. So I'm really glad that this plan very thoughtfully draws those boundaries in a way that makes those communities happy and puts those communities together. Despite them being served by different neighborhood boards and different house reps, they made it very clear that they wanted to be together for the council districts. And those testifiers that we heard, I also want to thank them, every single testifier that we had for testifying. I know that even the more sophisticated ones who serve on the neighborhood board, they serve in a volunteer capacity, and they do it out of the love and dedication that they have to their community. So thank you everybody who showed up and participated in this process. Thank you, Chair Iona, for running such smooth meetings. And thank you to all the commissioners for all of your hard work and attention.
Commissioner Caparrós speaking.
I basically listened to all the testifiers. You know, they're human as what we are too. We are volunteering our time as well as they're volunteering their time. And basically, I support draft one, public hearing, October 26th because as I looked at it, in the next 10 years, are we all going to still be around? Look at it really good because the future of the next generation is all social media. They're not traditional like some of us are, or modified voters and stuff. They are gonna look everything through media. They're not gonna sit in a room publicly speaking. So for us to take advantage of what we've seen, of what we've gone through 2021 because of the pandemic, we are teaching them that we need public hearing live, but this is what we got to go through. So I appreciate all the commissioners and our chair and the city and county of Honolulu for having all of us sit here for the last 4 months to make a decision that will rectify and help the community in the next 10 years, because we don't know who will be our next commissioners. Thank you.
Chair Iona. Chair Iona, Commissioner Shigemasa, I'd like to move that the commission adopt, or excuse me, I'd like to make a motion that the commission.
Before you make your motion though, do you have any comments? Because I have some comments I'd like to make.
Okay. I'll hold my comments until after I explain what the changes in the map are.
Well, then you should do it now
Oh.
because, yeah,
Okay.
because you can't do it when you make your motion or after you make your motion.
When we're in discussion,
No, we're in discussion right now.
but there's no motion on the floor.
Well, when you were gonna make a motion, so I'm
Correct.
just saying, if you're gonna make your motion, there's not gonna be any room for discussion after you make your motion. All right.
According to Robert's rules, don't you usually have discussion after a motion?
Yeah, well, you have a second and then you vote on the motion.
Well, before you vote, you have a discussion according to Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
make your motion.
I'd like to motion that the commission amend Ka'enemakapu Plan Member Draft 1 with the public hearing amendment draft so it can move forward for consideration upon final adoption.
I'll second that, Rick Sting.
Okay. I'll take a vote on that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to, are we in discussion?
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for yielding the floor for my explanations. I do just want to mention that I want to thank the commission staff or the Honolulu Elections Office staff, chair for leading us, and all the commissioners and testifiers who gave their time to get to where we are today. I do want to make a mention that Member Draft 2, there are components of Member Draft 2 that are implemented in the public hearing draft because there are public comments in favor of certain items in that draft. So what we'll see as we go through the maps in just a moment, we'll see that. I would like to speak to the merits of the amended Ka'enemakapu Member Draft Number 1 Public Hearing Amendment, which is the draft that has taken into account the numerous testimonials we received throughout this process and during the public hearings. After sharing the highlights of the amended draft, I'd like to briefly share my concerns with the other maps. First, I'd like to take us to District A. District A maintains Ka'ena Point concept and includes all communities on the Waianae coast, keeping Makakilo, Ho'olina, Kalailoa, Ho'opili in one district. A new feature that you may notice is that Ho'opili is included in the mapped area as this new planned development is part of growth of our second city, Kapolei, and thus should be included in the care of that council member. As we move forward to District B, the district is quite a large district. And the reason is simple, population. Our rural communities are not densely populated, and such is found in the district's geographical size. A new concept you will see in District B compared to other versions is the exclusion of the partial Mililani Mauka cutout. When making such a drastic change in population, you must decide what will, for the lack of a better phrase, what will give. In this proposal, communities such as Village Park, also known as Kunia and Waikele, are included in this district. In previous testimony received by this commission, we were asked to keep similar communities together. Provided that District B was majority agricultural lands, it made perfect sense to have the agricultural lands in Kunia be connected to this district. As we move to the eastern side of the island in District B, we see that the 2011 commission boundaries are kept. The 2021 commission received feedback from this community that they would like their lines retained as best as possible. Thus, we were able to achieve that here with a sufficient deviation range. In District C, key components to note are that the district remains intact with the 2011 commission lines. Using Makapuu Point concept and keeping East Honolulu and Windward separated, as many have testified against the failed Kaena plan, which did the opposite. Communities like Waimanalo to Ahuimanu are not at all changed. An adoption of the concept in Member Draft 2, which received high community praise. District D, we start at the Makapuu Point as defined in the Kaena Makapuu concept in an effort to maintain a Mauka to Makai Ahupua'a concept in all districts. District D maintains the original draft of using Alawai Canal as line following the Manoa Palolo Drainage Canal to Kapiolani Boulevard along Wailai Avenue for the line. This is new in this draft and is used in this draft to correct a negative 1.22% deviation to a new 0.08 positive deviation. The district line then moves Mauka on Sierra Drive as it does in the original draft number 1. Next, in District E, the lines we previously mentioned are our eastern boundaries. As we move into the urban core, it is wise that we maintain compact districts, doing our best efforts to keep urban communities with specific identities in Honolulu together. Ala Moana ward villages fronting Ala Moana Beach Park and Kawalo Basin are included in this district's Makai boundary. This proposal uses Ward Avenue as its new boundary, essentially keeping all of Ala Moana, ward villages, Makiki, Mo'iliili, and Manoa and St. Louis Heights in one district. District F moves west into Iwilei to include Iwilei and borders the next district at Kapalama Canal, following the H1 freeway to Middle Street and including all of Kalihi Valley, Makai from Kaka'ako to Iwilei, and Nu'uanu in the Mauka part of the district, Nu'uanu to Kalihi Valley. This district line corrects a long-standing concern of connecting communities of similar interests and moves away from a concept which included Kaka'ako with communities like Aiea. Next, District G moves westward. What you'll notice in District G, some changes were that we used the H1 freeway as the boundary line along and going south like Kapalama Canal as a divider between G and F. As you may know, commissioners, we did receive testimony from individuals who live in this community, and someone actually reached out personally to me to let me know, to clarify their testimony. They had felt that they were put on the spot and were not able to truly respond to my question that evening. This would include most of Mauka communities in relation to the Makai communities of the district. Another change to this district is in the western portion, where in the original draft, divided residents who live in the Kahanoi community of Aiea. Those of you may remember that this change was adopted from Member Draft 2, which follows the Waimalu Stream to H1 Freeway, then the Aiea Heights Ridgeline, and Kalaua'o Stream. In District H, it accomplishes quite a lot. Since receiving testimony from the community, there are many voices which requested the possibility of keeping Mililani intact as one community. This amendment accomplishes that. The district includes areas of Waimalu, Pearl City, Waipio, and Mililani Town, and Mauka in one district. While keeping boundaries using recognizable features and census blocks, it achieves a deviation of 0.63. Lastly, in District I, the district will include all of Eva Beach, Eva Gentry, Eva Villages, Iroquois Point, West Lock, and Waipahu. A district that once included parts of Waipahu will now include all of Waipahu, Makai of the freeway, and will expand to include more of the Eva in the same district, which keeps communities of similar interests together. As noted previously, the Ho'opili development was moved into District A in anticipation of the development which is forthcoming. Lastly, I'd like to briefly speak on the original 3 maps that went into public hearing, but also would like to remind commissioners that we were tasked to take maps to the public and consider all testimonies received while identifying the merit and interests of each testifier, and more importantly, every resident who lives in the city and county of Honolulu. As for both versions of the Ke'ena Makapu'u Members Draft 1 and 2, both had flaws. Those flaws were outlined in testimony, some for one over the other, but the testimony received in reference to creating Mauka to Makai, Ahupua'a concept type districts resonated positively. During the last few weeks, there were some comments or terms that were made, like disenfranchisement, used during this process. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the term disenfranchisement, and I quote, to deprive of a franchise of a legal right or some privilege of immunity, especially to deprive a right to vote. At no point in time has this commission, in past or present, ever, and I repeat, ever, taken away a person's right to vote. It is an inalienable right afforded by the Constitution of our great nation, and such I do not believe that it is accurate to say that by reapportioning district boundaries, the commission acts in a way that may disenfranchise voters. I would implore our legal counsel to provide mana'o in the misuse of this term by any member or testifier to this commission. Lastly, the modified existing district map, some key takeaways from this map. It splits the Manoa community, removes a sliver of the community into the neighboring council district. In Mililani, it splits houses along Kipapa Drive from Mililani Town and keeps homes in Waipio Acres in the neighboring district. More importantly, in districts F and G, it does the opposite of keeping communities of similar interests together, thus keeping communities like Kaka'ako in a district that runs along the mountains to Aiea. It does the opposite of establishing districts in the concept of Ahupua'a, which early Hawaiians used to live, making use of the Aina from the Mauka, the mountains, to the Makai, the sea. And one final thought. By the charter as commissioners, we are commissioned to reapportion council districts using the following 3 guidelines. Number 1, no district shall be drawn as to unduly favor a person or political faction. Number 2, districts insofar as practicable shall be contiguous and compact. And number 3, district lines shall where possible follow permanent and easily recognized features, and when practicable shall coincide with census tract boundaries. Members, I urge you to support the Ke'ena Makapu'u Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment and move it forward so that it may just be considered for final draft by this commission. And Mr. Chair, I yield the floor.
The discussion on public hearings amendment. That's on the floor. It was based on.
Excuse me.
No, Commissioner Douglas.
No, speaking to the mic.
Yes. So the motion on the floor, this kind of Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment. Now, I'm going to speak as a resident of Pearl City and also a resident of Makakilo in District 1. I lived there for about 12 years of my life. Now, this connection of Mililani Town, Mililani Mauka to Pearl City in, what is this, H, if I'm correct, the Green District. That whole move, or this attempt by Commissioner Shigemasa, was based upon one testimony, one comment made by Ms. La Chica from Mililani Town. And she was a partisan. She ran for office in the State House unsuccessfully during the last cycle. And this may present an opportunity for her. She said she identifies more with Pearl City than Waipahu when Commissioner Hussey Burdick asked her, if we could keep Mililani together, do you see Waipahu or Pearl City? Now, as a resident of Pearl City, and I'm thinking this way, if you took a poll of Mililani residents and asked, what town do you see Mililani as closest to? Wahiawa, Waipahu, or Pearl City? You would get the most confused reactions when Pearl City is mentioned. Now, if you took a poll of Pearl City residents, where I'm at, where I live, for the past nearly 8 years, what town do you see Pearl City as closest to? Waipahu or Mililani? I guarantee that the overwhelming response would be Waipahu. And they might even ask the person conducting the poll what they were smoking to even consider Mililani in central Oahu to be closer to Pearl City. Mililani is without traffic. To get to Mililani from Pearl City, you have to drive out of Mililani and go through Waipahu, 20 minutes through Kamehameha Highway, or 20 minutes through the H2, then cut through Waipio, and then go back up Kamehameha Highway, or come into Mililani from the backside from the H2, 20 minutes without traffic through Waipahu. But look what has been done to accomplish Ms. La Chica's desire to identify Pearl City and possibly make a run for Council District 8 in 2022. Commissioner Shigemasa absolutely hacked apart and severed Council District 9. What happened to all that ahupua'a talk over the past 2 months? In both Ka'ena Makapu'u maps and the modified existing map, ahupua'a in District 9 connected to the eastern-facing Waianae Range. So this kind of deception is the most telling display of the shameless political gaming that disgusts the general public and erodes public trust. And if these amendments go through,
He's got the phone.
if these amendments go through and somehow get selected, you know what else the public is going to say? How in the world did Tupola get Ho'opili? Of all the maps the support staff produced following population track protocol per our commission's direction, and the three member drafts, because Commissioner Hussey Burdick also had a draft produced by the commissioners, none of them had Ho'opili in Council District 1. So Commissioner Shigemasa sliced off the up-and-coming neighborhood of Ho'opili and gifts it to Council Member Andrea Tupola per her policy director from Washington, Braden Wilkerson's public testimony. Or even worse, there may have been a backroom dealing. And it's interesting how keeping Papipi in District 1 is no longer an issue. It appears that there's a council member who has a desire for Ho'opili, and that has maybe had an effect on the Papipi discussion in District 1. And the line in the amended draft now divides One'ula Beach Park into 2 districts. So this butchering of West Oahu is absurd. I hear Commissioner Covedo, what he shared earlier about the deviation line. All the maps are within the 10% deviation. There's nothing that states that we must select the lowest deviation. And I'd love to see Commissioner Covedo, as a fellow airman, do what's right and vote the amended draft down. But this leads to the biggest big picture problem with Commissioner Shigemasa's amendment proposals. And it is the disenfranchisement numbers. So let's totally run the gauntlet with destroying public trust on this one. Commissioner Shigemasa's amendment proposal map the numbers of disenfranchised population. It blows the modified existing district map numbers of disenfranchised population out of the water by 620%. The modified existing district map, it minimizes population disenfranchisement from even to odd districts to the count of 13,522, as you can see, the exhibit that was up there a moment ago. The disenfranchised population in Commissioner Shigemasa's amendment proposal is what? 83,802. Now, for some perspective, that's 74% of our target district population of 112,945. For more perspective, the state reapportionments target state house district target population for Oahu is 27,026. The state senate district target population is 55,642. So Commissioner Shigemasa's amendment proposal disenfranchises in Oahu population the equivalent of 3 state house districts or 1.5 Senate House districts. And how's this one? The 2021 population for Kauai County is 73,298. But like Braden Wilkerson, Councilmember Tupola's policy director said during testimony, people don't care about disenfranchisement. No, he's wrong. So Chair, Commissioners, for the sake of public trust, do the right thing and vote this amendment proposal down. I yield.
Commissioner, I'd like to address some comments that were made towards me.
Go ahead.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? What exactly do you mean by disenfranchised voters?
Can you identify yourself?
Commissioner Hussey Burdick, wondering what Commissioner Douglas means by disenfranchised voters and what these numbers mean on this exhibit.
Yeah, I believe it's been thoroughly discussed during the public hearings. When populations are moved from district to district, specifically coming up in 2022, from even number to odd number districts, the voters or the population represented in those communities being moved, they will not have the chance to have a vote.
So they will still get a ballot, right?
They'll get a ballot, but not for the city council race. That's a
Okay.
disenfranchisement for this race.
So, but if we adopt charter amendments, wouldn't that nullify that whole argument?
In the years to come, but not for 2022. But there is a possible solution for this, and that would be the renumbering of the districts. This was done in 2002. And I did ask Corporation Council, I sent an email to them, so we could have discussion on that and hear from Mr. Pang regarding the renumbering of districts, which would, in effect, everyone would get to vote, regardless of this.
Can we get a ruling from Corporation Council?
Again, identify yourself and what is your specific question?
Commissioner Hussey Burdick, wondering if moving the district lines as we are tasked does qualify as disenfranchisement?
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commission members, Dwayne Pang, Deputy Corporation Counsel. This question has been researched for every reapportionment commission. And the courts recognize that reapportionment will move district boundaries, and the effects are two. A voter may be represented by someone he or she did not have a chance to vote for. And because of city councils, or because of Honolulu's staggering terms, they may have to wait 2 years to vote for a council member. The courts don't find that as unconstitutional. They don't use the term disenfranchising. They use the term delay because the person will be delayed for 2 years in voting for his representative. But the main thing is that the courts do not recognize this as unconstitutional.
Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead. Are you done, Commissioner Hussey Burdick? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Shigimasa.
Vice Chair
Identify yourself, please. Thank you.
Vice Chair Shigimasa. I want to address some comments that were made about me negatively, and just want to address some main concerns here. We're tasked here to take these maps to public hearing. These minutes are in the public setting. We get testimony from the community. Simply listening to the community should not be characterized as myself politicizing a map or making backroom deals, as it was said. I think that that's utterly false, and I find that quite offensive that Commissioner Douglas made those comments. These, as you heard from the community in testimony, we received 11 pieces of oral testimony in support of this amended map. We received multitudes, more than, I didn't keep count of all the the written that came in that I didn't keep in my count here of the testimony we received orally, but there were a few more. This map was drawn not for any political expediency or political power or a grab for political power. This map was drawn because of the hearing that we had and what the community stated. You know, it adopted things from member draft 2 that made sense. It also listened to the various pieces of testimony that we received here at the commission. And I invite other commissioners to, as we stated when we first started this process, to use the Dave's redistricting software. And each commissioner, we can go on that software and we can move the lines around. And, you know, an answer to the question on why we have this district, well, it's simple. When you move a district such as Mililani, which is a large population, we have to make changes. And we've seen the drastic changes of the Kaena plan that moved to achieve a Mililani in the district with Wahiawa. It would take parts of Waimanalo and Kailua and put them with East Honolulu. And so to keep the Kaena Makapu'u point concept of using the 2 points as where we draw our lines, this map achieved that. And it also achieved overwhelming support today in our publicized final meeting, where in oral testimony alone, we received 11 pieces of oral testimony in support of this map from people in Waimanalo, Mililani, Kaimoki, East Honolulu, the windward side, or Kahului, Kapolei, and Kailua. We received one piece of oral testimony in support of the modified from a member from the Waiawa community. We received two pieces of testimony, oral testimony, from a member who lives in the Waipahu community and the Kahului community, and for member draft 2. And so I just want to address, Mr. Chair, that I feel that the comments made by Commissioner Douglas are unwarranted and are unfair and are a disparagement of my professionalism in conducting myself as a commissioner. And I would encourage the commissioner to correct his comments, because there at no point in time did I talk to Braden Wilkerson, as mentioned, and made a backroom deal about Ho'opili. It came down, Mr. Chair, to the numbers. How do we draw the district lines? One person, one vote. And this is what would happen to achieve the comments made in public hearing. We can go back to the drawing board if we want to, and we can see what we can do to alter District B and H and I and A to see if that area, if we do some shifts around, if that'll work. But I'll tell you from my experience, this took me hours to do. I had to find boundaries such as the gulches, the canals, well-known streets, bridge lines, to see how I could draw a map that made sense and did not take a sliver of one community, a sliver, and make a little line in one just to affect deviation. I'm just shook by the comments made tonight in regards to my professionalism. Mr. Chair, I yield the floor.
Go ahead. Commissioner Mao. Commissioner Mao, I just want to make a point of clarification. On our last meeting, I think it was October 11th, there were a number of people that testified about wanting Mililani Mauka and Mililani together. It just wasn't one person. And I think even you, to paraphrase you, Chair, you thought maybe they had a neighborhood board meeting and all those people came out on October 11th. So there were a number of people that wanted that community together. Thank you.
Chair, Commissioner Cuvito. I guess this is in response to Commissioner Douglas about what I mentioned about the deviation, the deviation that I mentioned. Just to give you a background, I've been gone for 20-something years, yeah. So all these testifiers that are mentioned that, there something is politicized, or the mention of Andrea Tupula and Ho'opili, I have no idea what effect that's gonna have according to this map. So when I voice what I think is right, what I think is right is we making a decision that affects communities for the next 10 years. We satisfied the three, I guess, areas within a charter. And for me, that for somebody that's not political, don't really know politicians and the jockeying that may go on, to me, what I think is right is looking at whether or not we fit within the characterization of the charter. Now, the next most important thing to me is the numbers, strictly numbers, no names, no political characters, no nothing. So when I look at the deviation and I just, just what I know from the upcoming developments, a lot of the developments is happening on the west side. And if you look at the numbers in the deviation, this draft, the public hearing amendment, has the lowest. And if you look at the districts that, the numbers of the district in the deviation, it's going to have the least effect that I know of to increase the deviation in the next 10 years. So what I think is right is I need to make a decision whether or not I'm going to pick, what I think is the lowest, and it's going to be the most healthy for just the whole island itself. So we're looking at 3.30. We're looking at, the deviation numbers between districts. I just feel what I think is right is, making a decision where it's going to be the most healthy number-wise and not considering any political jockeying whatsoever. So that's just my thoughts. And you, Chair.
Anybody else? Okay. If not, I'd like to make some comments. This is Chair Iona. Let's start with first and foremost what Commissioner Lau noted in regards to the, I guess you could say, the legality of the maps that we have in front of us. I don't believe anybody here can say that the maps that we have that we're considering right now is unconstitutional or does not follow the guidelines that we are tasked to follow. I think everybody's got to agree to that. So let's start with that. That means the existing modified map, Kaena Makapu Draft 1 and Kaena Makapu Draft 2. Nothing illegal with it. It does what it needs to do. So we have these parameters, or I should say we have these mandates that we have to look at, and we have looked at them. I want to say from the outset that I'm not in disagreement with any of the maps. I really believe that the maps are all, as we mentioned, they're all legal. We follow the requirements that we need to follow. But we have to take into consideration other things besides what we have here. Now, it's interesting to note that I think one of the last testifier, Becky Gardner, she mentioned the charter. I mean, the charter and the Constitution, and so did Commissioner Lau. And in particular, it's Chapter 3, 103.3A, which states, and I think you mentioned this too, Commissioner Shigemasa, or Vice Chair Shigemasa, which says, no district shall be so drawn as to unduly favor a person. Let me go to Councilmember Suneyoshi's testimony, because I hope we're not discounting her testimony just because she's a councilwoman who came to testify. I really don't. I hope you guys give it the proper respect and the weight that you gave, as you said, to all testifiers. Commissioner Douglas, rightly so, gave the weight that he felt was proper, and I think all of you have done that. She testified, and I yes, let's get it all out. I am appointed by Representative Suneyoshi, but I have to say that I think the inference from unduly favor in this case can say it's unduly burdening that council district. When you look at how you basically had to take away, right? You took Mililani and you gave it to Pro City. Now you had to take away something to, I guess, replenish what was taken away. You took what one testifier has testified to, I think so eloquently too, and that's another person I didn't hear anybody give credit to Corey Chun as well as Mr. Oshiro. Now, Mr. Oshiro, I agree with his rationale. His conclusion, but his rationale is right. So basically, according to Corey, Mr. Long, you took away all of Waipahu, well, not all of Waipahu, but a big part of Waipahu, and you put it in to Council District 2. And if you look at the map, I think Councilmember Suneyoshi is correct. It is a horseshoe. Am I exaggerating that? Is she exaggerating that? It's a horseshoe. And it's contiguous. I'm not saying it's illegal, but I'm saying what it does is it puts a total burden on her now. Where now her district runs from Royal Kunia, and I'm sorry, Vice Chair Shigimasa, but Royal Kunia is no longer a rural farming community. I have many friends and family that live in rural Kunia. In fact, I golf a lot at Royal Kunia, and it's not rural, it's urban. And likewise, Waikele, you never mentioned Waikele. Waikele, you can't say that that's rural. So how does that basically, for keeping communities together, how does that tie in to District 2? I don't see that. So I would say that it's unduly burdensome for the Council District 2. And it puts a tremendous burden on her now in regards to the 2022 election coming up, of not just one brand new small little district, but, and these are big districts, Royal Kunia, Waikele, they're huge. And
Chair.
they have also, you're gonna get your chance.
I just wanted to make a point of clarification on one of your statements. Are you, by your statement about unduly favoring, are you saying that we have to duly favor?
I
the
said
incumbent?
unduly burdensome. I didn't say unduly favor. I said you can draw the inference from unduly favoring to unduly burdensome. I think that's a fair inference to draw. And I think that's one and the same if I'm making a cogent argument in regards to, that aspect of the charter. So you now have taken, not only enlarged it like a year out from her election, but we have also taken a bunch of people who just elected a council member away from that fray. Now, we heard from Corporation Counsel that the courts do not recognize this as disenfranchisement or disenfranchise, and I get the play on it, but you're delaying the vote, as if we're going to use the language that council has mentioned. You're delaying the vote for a whole bunch of people, but in this case, you didn't delay the vote. You're making them vote again for another representative that's not who they voted for. So that's point number 2 in regards to this amended map. So for the reasons that were stated by Hori Chun and Mr. Oshiro, and now it's interesting that you also mentioned, and I think Commissioner Lau mentioned this about disruption. And this is why I say I agree with Mr. Oshiro's rationale, because he's right in regards to disruption. And this amended map causes tremendous disruption, not just for Council District 2, but also for Council District, I believe that's 8, and also Council District 9 and Council District 1. You're correct. The rest of the districts, pretty much, they're in line with what Draft 1 and Draft 2 and the original Kaena Makapu map had done. But yet, I've heard commissioners say they rejected Kaena because it was very radical and disruptive, going the other way. So how do you reconcile that argument with this and say that, well, this is not radical, this is not disruptive? I mean, the Kaena map had Mililani together, but I guess what wasn't acceptable to everybody here was the fact that now you had District 3 going into Hawaii Kai. And, I'm sorry, District 3 going all the way to Laie. And that wasn't, I guess, acceptable. I don't know. But in any event, and I get your point, if you making this an amendment, you couldn't wrap around now and go to Kahalu and that area and take residents, because you're gonna have to go much further than Kahalu to make up for Mililani's loss and bring it back in. So I get what you're saying there, Vice Chair. But still, wouldn't that have been the more undisruptive in regards to keeping communities together for District 2? I'm not talking about District 3. I'm not talking about District 4. I'm talking about District 2. Instead, you went the other way, which again, I would say is a horseshoe. It does form a horseshoe. I think Vice Commissioner Douglas made a good point in regards that we took away the Ahupua'a concept for District 9. And now we have a just humongous, the biggest district in the entire county for District 2. Now, I think that's something that needs to be considered in regards to being fair and being just in regards to how we draw our district. Yes, I understand the numbers, and that's why I'm saying I got no problems with the dual map. It's, yeah, the numbers are there, but we are still within our constitutional mandate and our charter mandates and all the requirements that we have in regards to the modified district. The modified district, yes, I understand. It's got a funky draft for, I believe that's Council District 6. And I don't deny that. And I think everybody here recognizes that. And I think everybody recognizes this is a much better concept. The Ahupua'a concept is a much better concept. But in light of what we're doing, and again, we won't use the numbers, we won't use the word disenfranchised, but people are not going to be able to vote. And if you look at the numbers, just the numbers alone in the population shift, it's a tremendous population shift. And it is disruptive. I don't know how else to describe it. It is disruptive. And as such, this is why, and there is a solution to it. And the solution is to have the charter amended such that during reapportionment years, we do have everyone running for election. And I think that is the solution. But that's down the line. That's not going to, by us proposing that right now, we're not righting the wrong in regards to the disruption and the tremendous amount of people that we are now moving and shifting and delaying their opportunity to vote. Or in the other instance, having them vote again within another 2 years for an entirely different representative. So yes, I agree that you're going to have, but I predict this. And, you know, I dare to say, except for maybe Commissioner Lau, I'm I'm one of the oldest people on this commission. I've been here a long time. I have lived in every single one of these districts. And let me just give you a little briefing on this one, Chair Shigemasa, because you told me you're not even 30 yet. We had that little conversation, remember? So let me tell you, when we got married back in 1981, and of course we were living in town, in Makiki, my wife and I, and we wanted our family. And so we wanted a house. And you know where the only place to move was back then, if you wanted a house? Well, a house that you could probably afford was either Waipio Gentry or Mililani. Mililani started their development in the 70s, and that's Mililani Town. Long before you guys were even conceived, some of you here in this room. And guess where we moved to? Waipio. And Waipio was just starting. Why? Because Mililani was too far. It was too far. So we said, we're moving. That was country, Mililani. Waipio was urban. So we lived in Waipio. We have our children. House is too small. Now we're going to move again. How about Mililani? Because that's sort of like Waipio. No, we move out to Kapolei. That was about 30 years ago. And Kapolei was known as, when we moved out there, when we were the second development out there, guess what their zip code and their city was called? Eva Beach. But they didn't want to be a part of Eva Beach. Kapolei wanted to be Kapolei. They said, okay, Makakilo. They didn't want to be a part of Makakilo. They said, how about Honokaihale? No, they didn't want to be a part of Honokaihale. So the point I'm trying to make here is that in 10 years, We don't know where the population shift, we know where development is. Hope Hilly, Coral Ridge. We have projections in regards to what they are supposed to be. We also have projections along the rail. Supposed to be TODs coming up. So if you look at the rail route and you have what they project to have in these TODs, you're going to have massive population growth also, Chair Quevedo, along that corridor. And so do you think that corridor is going to be, that communities in there, that for one, they're going to be in line with Manoa, with Kalihi Valley, with Makiki? I would submit not. I'd say they have a totally different ideology and demographic and everything else. And it's going to be along that corridor. And guess how District 8 runs right now? I wouldn't be surprised if that's how districts are going to run back then too. I'm saying this only because you're talking about projections. You're all talking about where the population is going to go. And I'm not saying you don't consider that, but you're considering it. So consider what I'm saying also in regards to delaying votes and making a drastic shift in population. And then last but not least, and I told Vice Chair Shigimasa this, and I predict this right now, maybe not 10 years, but in 20 years when I'm long gone, and I hope Commissioner Lau is still around, so he can maybe come to my to the ocean and tell me, Duke, you were right. We're gonna split this county into two counties. We're gonna have two counties. And so it behooves me at this point in time, this is what I'm trying to say, for us to make this change, and this is a radical change. It's a very disruptive change. When we can keep it as it is, and again, it's not about status quo. Believe me, I don't like to say it with status quo. It's just about we're not as disruptive as we will be. We keep the numbers as they are. Pretty much, 13,000 is much more palatable than 83,000. And we put the changes we need to put in, or we make the recommendations, and hopefully this council will see fit and make those changes so that in the next commission meeting, or I should say next commission session, they will then have those tools that they need, because I think Commissioner Hasi Burdick mentioned this pretty early in the process about an at-large district. And that would be great too, if we had that opportunity. I think that would be also something that we could look at. So for all of those reasons, I'm sorry, but I had to, give some context to it. I hope you would reconsider in regards to the amendment and not approve it. And if at the very least, which is not as radical, I would submit, if you're not in favor of the modified, existing modified, I would say that draft 2, Kaena Makapu Plan Member Draft 2, is much more palatable, especially for Council District 2, in regards to keeping it more in line with what needs to be done. Okay, with that, I yield the floor to, go ahead, Vice Chair.
Commissioner Shigimasa, could I call up Corporation Counsel?
Sure. Wait, what's the question first? I want to know the question before you.
I think I have the right to ask.
Well, no, I want to know what the question is before we proceed.
Mr. Peng, in regards to number 1, no district shall be so drawn as to unduly favor a person or political faction. A comment was made that by the drawing in the public hearing amendment, that it then unduly favors an incumbent. Is that legally right? So by Councilmember Tsuneyoshi's district, who's the current council member now, a comment was made on it would unduly favor her.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said that the mandate that you have says you do not unduly favor a person. You didn't say candidate, you said a person. or a political party. I said an inference can be drawn that in this case, Council District 2, the incumbent in Council District 2 is being unduly burdened, which to me is a logical inference. And I said that
Thank you.
needs to be considered.
Thank you for the clarification.
That's what I said.
Mr. Pang, is it the commission's position to consider that when we're drawing the lines according to the charter, consider what Chair Iona had just mentioned?
The charter's language, as the chair indicated, is to not unduly favor a person. And the opposite is clearly true. If you burden one particular person or one particular political party, the opposite is correct. You're by doing that, you're favoring another group or another person. So that argument is a valid argument. Whether this particular map would fall under that, that's only for the court to say.
And I think the same action happens in District F, where we correct the line from going to Aiea to Kalihi Valley and includes parts of Kalihi, Mauka of H1 Freeway. Does this action unduly burden an incumbent?
That's a decision for the courts to make if you adopt it. So I can't answer that.
Wait.
I think.
Are you finished?
No, not yet.
Can you remove your mask just so we
I'm
can?
sorry. I think the argument can be used both ways, Chair, as you mentioned. When we're drawing these lines, I don't think it's correct that we talk about, as a testifier had mentioned earlier, wait 10 years. Like how you mentioned, we're going to, there's going to be development, lines are going to shift. Maybe we'll make a change to the chart. Maybe the charter will change by then. And a question was made to the commission to wait 10 years to correct the Mililani area. I don't know if that's the best action by this commission. And I would ask Mr. Pang if we are legally bound to the idea of disruption. Is disruption a term that if we're disrupting a vote, in other words, delaying a vote, if that's unconstitutional? I think you answered this earlier, but I'd like you to clarify.
A couple of things. As I mentioned before, the courts recognize that some people's votes, because of the staggered term, and Honolulu is not the only entity that has staggered terms. It's throughout the nation. So they recognize that with respect to reapportionment, there will be a delay in voting. Although not mentioned in part of the charter, if this commission deems it reasonable to adopt a map with the least disruption, the courts have upheld that. That is a reasonable policy or reasonable determination by a reapportionment commission.
Mr. Chair, one follow-up question. Mr. Pang, in regards to Kawamoto versus Okata, it was mentioned throughout this hearing, or I think at one point in the hearing about this case.
Yes.
By this map and looking at the decision of the court in regards to, it's not drawn the same way as it was drawn in 1991. But would you say that this map, by the findings and decisions of that court at that time, is unconstitutional?
Um, um, uh, the lines on these maps, um, where to draw the lines are strictly within your authority. I will mention that the Kawamoto Court upheld the division of Waipahu for a number of reasons. And one of the reasons, well, I'll just read the number of reasons. It did indicate that the charter does not require that communities remain undivided, although you could establish a policy and make them undivided.
Mr. Peng,
Let
and is
me-
that policy
can-
established today?
I'm not going to, no, right now it's not, because you don't have a majority of vote. So yes, to answer your question, no. But with respect to the Kawamoto case, and I'll finish there, the 5 reasons they upheld the decision and the division of Waipahu, and I mentioned that the charter does not require communities to remain undivided. There is no explicit division separating Waipahu from other neighborhoods. There was a lack of defined boundaries, which precludes direct reapportionment based upon a strict recognition of community boundaries. They couldn't recognize where Waipahu was. And Waipahuans, those who live in Waipahu, don't make up a group that requires special protection. And finally, there was no recognizable protectable group. They couldn't identify what was defined as a Waipahuan. Whether they lived there or whether they were born there, they couldn't do that. So I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your clarification. Mr. Chair, I yield the floor.
Commissioner Hussey Burdick. And I just want to clarify for the record that my last name ends in a K sound, not a T sound, as I've been hearing a couple times. So I have a question about can Vice Chair Shigemasa please repeat the motion that's on the floor right now? Because it's my understanding that his motion was just to move this forward to the next step with the potential for possible further amendment. Because I am sympathetic to the fact that North Shore is now the biggest geographically, because the rural nature of the district means that it's so spread out. And so perhaps, as Commissioner Lau has suggested, maybe we could look at what happens with the deviation if we take those pieces and put them into other districts instead of with the North Shore district. So could you repeat the motion, please?
The motion that I stated earlier is I motion that the Ka'ena-Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment, Ka'ena-Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 1 be amended to the Ka'ena-Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment for final adoption. So replacing Draft 1, because right now this is just an amendment. It
So,
would
and
replace
it
Draft
was
1.
second, it was second, correct? Yeah, okay. Is that, okay, you got it?
So I guess, thank you. I guess I have a further question. Is it possible to entertain any further amendments?
Well, we got to vote on this first.
But so it would be conceivable that we could vote on this first, then vote to consider further amendments.
Conceivable, yes.
Thank you.
We'll take a roll on the vote. I'm sorry, on the motion. I'm sorry.
Chairperson, can I just get clarification?
Sure.
Is the motion to Ka'ena-Makapu'u Plan Member Draft 1 Public Hearing Amendment, October 26, 2002, supersedes the Draft 1?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Caparós,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
No.
Commissioner Hussey Burdick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lau,
Yes.
Commissioner Mao,
Yes.
Commissioner Quevedo Jr.,
Yes.
Commissioner Shigemasa,
Aye.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Chair Iona.
No.
7 ayes, Chair.
Okay. So the motion has passed. Draft one, let me get this straight.
Chair Ona, Commissioner Douglas. I move that we adopt the modified existing plan for final redistricting plan.
Okay, we're gonna actually, so right now where we're at is we have 3 maps in front of us to,
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Mhm.
A motion was made.
I know, before I accept the motion, I'm gonna just try to clarify for Commissioner Douglas what the process is right now, okay? So in front of us right now, we have three maps that I would like to adopt as the final redistricting plan. So you have the first map, which is the Kaena Makapu Plan Member Draft 1. You have the Kaena Makapu Plan Member Draft 2, and you have the modified existing district proposed plan. These are your final 3 maps, okay? Now, before we proceed with the vote, and I'm going to remind all of you that once we put it out to a vote, okay? And we want to take it in that order. That's why I stopped you at that. So we're going to take it first, the draft 1, draft 2, and then the modified.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Shigemasa, per Robert's Rules of Order, a motion was made on the floor. So that motion should be heard and then asked for a second. And if there's no second, then that motion will fail. I think because the motion was already made, we do have to follow Robert's Rules of Order as noted in our commission rules.
The motion was started, it wasn't completed because I stopped the process at that point in time, which I believe the chair has the authority to do, so we could clarify it. So we're not in violation of Robert's rules. We are proceeding pursuant to how the agenda is set up. And that was me correcting a commissioner who just spoke a little bit too quick. So we have 4 maps, these 3 maps before us. Before we proceed to vote on the maps, I want to know if there's any other questions or discussions or considerations in regards to these maps.
Information.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas, Chair Ona, point of information regarding the Sunshine Law with, if I could have Mr. Pang.
Go ahead.
So Mr. Pang, during our first and second meeting, we talked about the Sunshine Law and I have a question because I came across this map. I don't, up until Saturday, I haven't gone onto the Honolulu Elections Division website. And that's the first. So I did a search on social media, Honolulu Reapportionment. I do that every few days. I didn't see the update, which was, I believe, done on Wednesday or Thursday, where this public hearing amendment plan was made. But I came across a couple of posts on social media, and within one of the posts, it was one of our commissioners here using advocacy language for that. I just wanted to clarify because, and I think you answered this during our second meeting, but is using advocacy language for a plan on social media, is that a violation on someone's personal social media? Is that a violation of Sunshine Law or not? Or is that just if they had, because I believe in the discussion, it was if they were to run like a site for the commission. So if someone on their personal, the question is if someone on their personal social media site advocated or used advocacy language for something that for this map here, would that be a violation of Sunshine Law if other members who have social media saw it and more than or even multiple were aware of it, or there was like a chain from that?
The Sunshine Law was adopted way before social media,
Yes.
but the Sunshine Law prohibits board members from discussing board matters outside of a scheduled legal meeting. Posting something without additional conversation amongst board members, I don't think that that would be deemed a violation.
Thank you, Mr. Pang.
Is that it?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion before we go to a vote on these maps? Any other discussion or questions relating to these maps?
Commissioner Lau. Commissioner Lau. Commissioner Chair Iona, just a clarification. So of the three maps, is one of them the public hearing amendment?
That's draft one.
Okay.
It's not draft one.
All right. Just want to clarify. Okay.
Okay. If not, we will take a vote on which map we will be adopting for final redistricting plan. So do I hear a motion to adopt the Kaena-Makapu Plan, member draft one, as the final redistricting plan?
So moved. Commissioner Hussey Burdick, so moved.
Okay.
Rick Singh, I second.
Okay. Let's take a vote. Oh, by the way, you can only vote once, and once we get the required 5 votes, that'll be the map that we will adopt.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
No.
Commissioner Hussey Burdick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lau,
Yes.
Commissioner Mao,
Yes.
Commissioner Quivero Jr.,
Yes.
Commissioner Shigemasa,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Chair Iona,
No.
7 ayes, Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
1 minute. Is there something funny, Commissioner Burdick? I didn't hear your response. You know, we are here to do something that's very important. We're not here to play games. We're not here to disparage anybody. We're not here to ridicule anybody. I don't understand what's so funny at this point in time.
Mr. Chair, I think those comments are unwarranted right now.
Really? That's the second time she's done that. Why is it unwarranted? I'm trying to conduct a professional hearing here, Chair.
Well, the reason it's unwarranted is I requested to be recognized.
Yeah, and I said 1 minute.
Okay.
And I guess that was so funny. I don't know. You can explain yourself. For the record, I need to note that the commissioners, the Kaena-Makapu Plan Member Draft 1 will be recorded, has been voted upon and recorded the majority 5 votes, and thus has been adopted as the final districting plan. Are there any proposed additional amendments to the final redistricting plan?
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
I move that we renumber the districts.
Okay, that is a motion on the floor. Ed, you want to elaborate on that?
Maybe in discussion to renumber the districts.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Mr. Chair, point of clarification. I think the motion is, in order for us to discuss a motion, we have to have the full details of the motion. So meaning that if we're going to say we renumber the districts, the motion has to be made, and I would implore council to weigh in on the motion saying, well, District A as recognized here, be District 1.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll clarify.
Thank you.
Yes. So I move to renumber the districts starting in District I and going counterclockwise to District A. I being District 1 and A being District 9. Is that clear?
Could you clarify all the districts, because how we would move along?
So it would be counterclockwise.
Excuse
So-
me, is there a map that maybe we can put up that might assist in this so everybody can follow?
Okay. So currently District I, that would be what is presently District 9, the Eva Beach Iroquois Point. So District 9 or District I. So we'd renumber for that to be District 1. And then we would go counterclockwise. So then
Go down the line.
So District 8, well, what is District H would be District 2. Okay. Then District G would be District 3. District F would be District 4. District E would remain District 5. District D would be District 6. District C would be District 7. District B would be District 2. I'm sorry, it would be District 8. And District A would be District 9.
That is your motion to
Yes.
redistrict, I mean, to renumber the districts according to what you just stated.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. And I'll second that motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Commissioner Shigemasa, I think the motion keeps intact odds and evens, but when I
You can do that for discussion, but let me just
Yeah,
go on
this
the
is a
motion.
discussion. Well-
If anybody, I second the
Yeah,
motion.
this is the discussion. This is my discussion. Is
Oh,
that
okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I believe that the numbers keep intact, the odds and evens to what they are today. But I don't understand the reasoning behind making District 9 District 1. And so I would just say that I wouldn't be able to support this motion because I think what we should be looking at is potentially trying to keep the same numbering for the districts that currently represent those communities today.
Sorry, can I just clarify? I
If you
believe,
can identify yourself.
sorry, Commissioner Hussey Burdick. I believe, and I could be wrong, but can I just get clarification from the maker of the motion that this would actually change every district from odd to even and vice versa, except for the EVA district is the only one that would stay odd?
Commissioner Douglas, for clarification, it wouldn't change the districts from odd to even. The even and odds would remain the same.
Sorry, so what is currently District 3 would be District 4, if I understand your motion correctly, and I believe that that would change from
No,
odd
what
to
is,
even.
excuse me, what is, okay, for clarification, Commissioner Hussey Burdick, what is currently District 3 would be District 7.
Is there a way that we can like get some numbers up on a map? Like I can do it really quick if you just let me take over the screen.
5 minutes?
Chair, motion to make a recess?
Any second?
Commissioner Douglas, second.
Okay, any objection? None? We'll take a 5-minute recess. who? Meeting when we took our recess the purpose for the recess was to put some numbers on a map as proposed by the motion so that people could see, the commissioners could see the proposed amendments and how it would be changed. Before we proceed, Mr. Pang?
Is this on? Oh, Chair Iona, I just wanted to clarify and correct something that was stated in public testimony. Renumbering the districts will not extend a 4-year term to a 6-year term. Can't do that. It will never do that. But it will cut a 4-year term to a 2-year term.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Pang? Go ahead.
Commissioner Shigimasa, Mr. Pang, if the numbers today remain because elections are even and odd,
Yes.
if we adopt not the same number, but a different even number, will that change at all?
No, you cannot, you are not authorized to change the charter. So the next election will be even numbers.
Correct. So my question is, if the even numbers remain the same, but maybe not remain even, but not the same even numerical number, would that wouldn't change the election cycle of that district?
It wouldn't change the election cycle.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Is that it, Mr. Okay, thank you. Identify yourself.
Commissioner Hussey Burdick. So I have a question for the maker of this motion. What is the impetus for this change?
Maybe it was my misunderstanding, but I thought that it would resolve the delay question. I thought that renumbering the districts would resolve it, but if I'm not mistaken, according to corporate counsel, Mr. Pang, that wouldn't resolve. It would still, we'd have to renumber it differently, correctly. We'd have to change the evens to odd numbers and then the odds to evens. Is that correct, Mr. Pang?
I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish by changing the numbers.
During the March 2nd meeting, when we were appointed by the city council, Clerk Takahashi, if you go back to the archives, I looked at the Honolulu City Council TV archives, he did mention that the renumbering would change that, or so it would change so that there would be so when this new renumbered map goes into effect in 2022, there would also have to be special elections for the districts where we talk about this delay.
If you renumber the odd numbers to even numbers, the result will be cutting off the odd numbers 4-year term to 2-year terms.
Yes.
So there will be,
Yes.
the odd numbers will go through re-election.
Yes.
Come next November.
Yes.
The even numbers will not come up for re-election. However, because many of them have 4-year terms, their terms will expire on January 2nd, 2023. And at that point, there will be a vacancy, and the city clerk will have to hold special elections. In the meantime, those 4 vacancies will be filled by people selected by the sitting council members.
Yeah, understood.
And so that election, depending on timing, may not occur until March 2023. And if there is no charter amendment, in fact, even if there is a charter amendment, the charter amendment wouldn't be effective until the next reapportionment commission. What would happen is every 2 years, you will have special elections come the January 2nd. So you will put the city clerk in a tough bind for the next 10 years.
Commissioner, or Chair, Commissioner Shigimasa, just clarification, Mr. Peng. So what you're saying, and I apologize for my ignorance. If we were to make District 1, District 2,
Yes.
just hypothetically, because next year is even election, the council member of 1 would have to run in the next election to remain in the District 2 seat. Is that correct?
That is correct, because she's in District 2 now, and that is an even district.
In what situation would the council have to appoint a member to a seat? I guess I'm just confused at that fact that you
Okay,
mentioned.
let's go to Districts 1 and District 2. Okay, District 2 is up for re-election. Okay, and District 2 technically is finishing her 4-year term. So she's up for re-election. So her term ends on January 2nd, 2023, after the election. Council District 1, current Council District 1, is not up for re-election. She remains in her seat until 2025, January 2nd, 2025. If you change her to number 2, she has to go and get re-elected. Her term is cut to 2 years.
So she would be,
She would have
to go to re-election, but at what point in time would the council need to appoint somebody to fill the seat? That's where
come January 2nd, Council District 1, which was number 2 before, will be vacant because her term ends after 4 years. You have no authority to extend her term to 6 years. Her term ends on January 2nd, 2023. Period. That's it. And at that time, a vacancy has to be declared. And that's probably for all 4 of the even districts. So there will be 4 vacancy. Council will determine there's a vacancy, and that would happen.
Thank you for the clarification.
And it will happen every 2 years until the charter is changed. And if the charter is not changed, happens basically until the next reapportionment, and they renumber it back again. So,
Rex, this is Commissioner Mao. I wrote an email on which districts are terming out. I think you told me 6 and 8.
that is correct.
So if 6 and 8 are terming out, if we go to this, what happens to 6 and 8?
They will term out on January 2nd, 2023, but they're not up for re-election on November 2022. There will not be an election because you're changing the election. You're changing the election to to odds. That's what you're doing. You're changing the election for
Mr. Chair.
November 2022.
Just point
to
of clarification.
even.
The motion on the floor is odds, right? I want to clarify for the commissioners. So the motion on the floor is that we're not changing it. Is that correct? I just want to make sure we're all, because I think what Mr. Pang is talking about is in the event that we change it. But the current motion on the floor is odds remain odds and evens remain evens. Is that correct?
That is the proposal right there, right? That's the proposal. And ultimately, it doesn't change the even and the odd. Changes the numbers, but it doesn't change the even and the odd.
So in Mr. Pang, in your comments,
It's not,
that's
it's not a comment. I was
Oh,
responding to Commissioner Douglas's question about changing. So it's not my comment. It's a response to Commissioner's question.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this?
This is Commissioner Mao. So can you re-emphasize if districts 6 and 8 are terming out, how does that affect each of that districts under this rejiggling?
6 and 8. 6 would move to 4 and 8 would move to 2. Is that right?
Yeah.
So the evens would, they would remain even and they would still be up for re-election under the charter. Well, not up for re-election, but their districts will be up for election. They cannot, they're termed out.
They'll be up for re-election in 2022?
No, the districts will be up for election, but because they term out, they cannot apply for another term.
Yes.
Those council members are done under the charter. We have term limits, 2 consecutive 4-year terms, 2 consecutive.
Mr. Chair.
Wait, I think.
Because a hypothetical was posed, I want to question, we talked about changing from odd to even. If there is a council member who currently represents an even number district, and if the district changes to odd, can that council member who is term limited now run again for a seat in an odd number district?
I would say no, because they fulfilled their no more than 2-year term. They would have to sit out a full term.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Pang. So,
Identify yourself.
sorry, Rickson. So would the proposal on the screen now mitigate this idea of disruption or what was earlier called disenfranchising at all?
No, the numbers that were presented in terms of how many people moved from one district to another does not change by you renumbering it. And it doesn't even change if you renumber it from odd to even. The numbers that move from one district to another remain the same.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hussey Burdick. I guess I'm just wondering if, since the original maker of the motion has realized that it didn't do what he thought it was going to do you still want to make this motion?
Motion. Commissioner Douglas, well, the motion's on the floor, it's been seconded, and we're in discussion, so. For further discussion, I'll probably vote no.
We'll take a vote.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to motion to amend the current motion on the floor.
What's your amendment?
My amendment would be to renumber the districts from A to 1, B to 2, C 3, D 4, E 5, F 6, G 7, H 8, I 9.
That's what's on the screen, but that's not an amendment.
No, that is an amendment because that's the number on the screen prior.
Beg pardon?
On the screen prior was 9 was 1. Yeah, they just
They
changed it so
changed
they
it?
could, so you could see what I was talking about.
Oh, okay. I thought that was what he proposed. Isn't that what you proposed?
This is the proposal right now.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is what I,
And I
this is the
am,
motion I made.
I'm making a motion to amend the current motion on the
Back.
floor to what I just mentioned,
Which is back to what?
which is well, not back, I don't want to use that term, which is A1,
Yeah,
B2,
okay.
correct?
Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll take a voice. Motion. Any opposed? Okay, you oppose? Okay.
I oppose.
You oppose?
Yes.
Okay. So let's take a roll. Let's take a roll call.
This is for the amendment.
This is
Yeah,
to
this is for the-
amend
this
the
is for-
current motion
yeah,
on the
this
floor.
Amending the current motion. Commissioner Caparós,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Aye.
Commissioner Hussey Burdick,
Aye.
Commissioner Lau,
Yes.
Commissioner Mao,
No.
Commissioner Cuivero Jr.,
Yes.
Commissioner Shikimasa,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Chair Iona,
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 no, Chair.
Okay, so the amended motion is passed, okay. Before the motion had been made by Commissioner Douglas, I had said if there was any proposed additional amendments to this final redistricting plan that you, the commissioners, adopted. Okay, if there is none,
Well, wait. Commissioner Long. Chair Iona, I would make a motion for the commission to appoint a permitted interaction group consisting of Vice Chair Shigimasa, Commissioner Douglas, and another commissioner, perhaps Commissioner, whoever might be available, to meet over the next week or 2 weeks to consider whether there are any other alternative redistricting lines that the commission should consider to address any of the concerns expressed today by the testifiers.
Excuse me, point of order. I believe there's still a motion on the floor. We just voted to amend the motion. We did not pass the actual motion.
you're correct. Thank you for that. Okay, let's take a roll on that. We're now voting. The vote is for the amended motion.
Commissioner Caparós,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Aye.
Commissioner Hussey Burdick, Commissioner Lau,
Aye.
Commissioner Mao,
Yes.
Commissioner Cuivero Jr.,
Yes.
Commissioner Shikimasa,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Chair Iona,
Yes,
9 ayes, Chair.
go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Iona. I had made a motion. I would make a motion to see if the commissioners would approve appointing a permitted interaction group, including Commissioner Douglas, Commissioner Shigimasa, and perhaps another commissioner to meet over the next week or 2 weeks to see if there are some alternative district proposals, redistricting proposals that the commission should consider. Based on tonight's testimony and the comments made today of concerns, just to ensure that we have explored, because my point is that the only time we ever get to look at these maps, because we are not communicating with others, is at these hearings or when we see it. And so hearing expressions or concerns of other commissioners, it only occurs right now. Given that, there's no room for given that there's no room for any joint exploration of redistricting lines that may address concerns. we all realize from our past experience up to date that any movement of these lines, it's going to affect another district. And I don't necessarily want to extend the time in which we are deliberating, but in the interest of exploring all options, giving commissioners a chance to sit down and work with staff or work with themselves to consider other alternatives may be something that would help. That's my motion.
No, I understand where you're coming from, Commissioner. Well, this is Chair Iona. It does prolong the process about another month. And the reason for that is because we will then, if there are, see, that's the problem. If you had something specific, we could definitely say, okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna have the staff work on it, and we will come back next week, Thursday. And then we'll take it at that. We'll come, but if not, what you're doing is you're basically trying to, explore and create another map that entails us taking it out to the public again, having the public testify on this again, and then of course us voting on it again. If there's any more amendments, we take it down the line. And that's the reason why I would be opposed to that process at this point in time. Unless you have like I said, if you have a specific amendment that you would like to propose right now, then I can say, okay, well, we'll have staff look at it, and we'll come back next week, Thursday, at 6 o'clock here at Honolulu Holly, or I should say Friday, and we will take a vote on the amendment as now, implemented, and that'll be it. We don't have to go out to public hearing on that. We've already done what we need to do.
Point of order.
Yes,
Can we get a ruling from Corp Counsel?
sure.
Is it in order
Mr.
for
Fang.
Commissioner Lau to make a motion, and then at which point any commissioner could make a motion, and then any commissioner could second it, right? The chair can't unilaterally decide that he can't make that motion?
That's not what I was doing. I was explaining my position on it. Because Mr. Lau said, as you noted, that he was concerned about dragging the process on, and I just told him what would happen if he did. So I didn't say he couldn't make the motion. Okay, let's just get that straight.
So wouldn't that be out of order as well? That would be a point to make during discussion.
We're discussing.
You
Yeah.
can't discuss until there's a second.
He didn't even make the motion.
Well, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Unless somebody else is going to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Shigemasa, I just have a question for Corporation Counsel at where we are on the agenda. Did we move to C and adopt the final redistricting plan? And if we have moved on this item, are we able to go back now that we've approved a final redistricting plan? I'm curious what's the legality?
I don't recall the exact words of the motion, but my understanding is you adopt this as a final plan with, as I think the chair indicated, possible amendments, and I think he offered whether anybody had a possible amendments. That's my understanding of what took place.
Mr. Chair, could we recess to review the video footage to ensure what motion was made? I just want to make sure that legally we're whatever the motion had said at that time.
Well, that's my understanding. If any commissioner wants to make a motion for reconsideration or amend the current plan right now, that's fine. But once you adjourn and you can't make a motion to reconsider or amend the plan.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That answers my question fully. Thank you.
Okay. So there being no additional amendments to the final redistricting plan. I do want to note for the record that in keeping with past practices, the Northwest Pacific Islands will be attached to Council District 3 as it is currently. That's for the record. So, members, now that you've adopted the final redistricting plan, the support staff will begin the work of putting the final report together, and it is hereby authorized to make miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments as necessary. The staff will be contacting members on their availability to obtain signatures required for the final report. Even though our deadline to file the final report is on Sunday, January 2nd, 2022, again, it's in our best interest to complete the filing process by December 15th before the holiday. So I just put that out so you understand that when the staff makes a call, that you be as responsive as you can to them and accommodate them as like you guys have been as best as you can, okay? Now, since we've adopted the final redistricting plan, let's proceed to item 2 under new business, which is the recommendation to the City Council on proposed revisions to the revised order that for the next reapportionment commission, that they be authorized. I mean, they not authorized, but at that point in time, that every district, every council district would be up for reelection in accordance to something similar to what the state commission has done with the Senate districts, something to that effect. Now, how I'd like to proceed on this is I'd like to ask one of our esteemed attorneys if they could assist us by drafting the proposed language and then passing it around to everybody for any edits or comments they might have, and then submitting it to the staff so they can submit it in our final report. That'll expedite the process a lot quicker than if we were to sit here today and bang this out. I'm looking at only 2 guys and nobody, I mean, a little cool on you guys' part, and it would help. Sure, you're the drafter. Okay, you're the Commissioner Lau, you're the drafter. Okay.
Iona, I think, isn't the Corporation Council tasked with doing that?
No, they're not tasked with doing that. This is coming from us, the commission.
My concern would be if you're passing it around outside of a meeting, it would be considered a violation of the Sunshine Law.
Okay, solely for the purposes of editing, that's it.
I think I think that would be.
Okay, so how do you propose we proceed with
I
it?
think that it would be drafted and it would be adopted, approved at another meeting, another proper agendized meeting.
Okay, so if we take care of it now,
Mhm.
then we don't have to have another meeting. Is this something we can take up in executive session?
You could recess, draft it and adopt it today, or you could continue the meeting tomorrow and adopt it
Yeah,
tomorrow.
so in other words,
Yeah.
all I'm asking is if we took an executive session right now,
Mhm.
could we adopt it or draft it in this executive session? With
Yes.
council present?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody opposed to that?
Mr. Chair, I move that we move into executive session. Commissioner Shigemasa.
Caparo, second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed, say nay. Okay, motion is passed, and we are now in executive session. So just stay right here. You guys stay right here. Doris, can, We are going to re-adjourn this commission meeting. We are out of executive session. Thank you for that, commissioners. When we broke for executive session, the item in front of us was and I believe, like I said, everybody was in agreement with this, so there was no need to um, commence or to initiate this via a motion, since we're all in agreement. But it was in regards to the issue that was very contentious in this commission and decision-making process, and that is the issue of delayed voting. And so we wanted to make our concerns known to the city, to the council members, but it was suggested that it might be best for us to address this to the Charter Commission, since this is a charter issue, and that it will be, the Charter Commission will be reconvening, I believe, in the year 2026. And so as such, we felt that that was more appropriate. And accordingly, we, in executive session, we have drafted what is now on the screen. So if members, if you can look at that, review it, and let me know if you have any objections to it.
Maybe we
Yeah,
should,
identify yourself, please.
Commissioner Delvis, maybe we should add the Hawaii state constitution.
Okay. Yeah. Can we? Go ahead. Identify yourself.
Commissioner Hussey Burdick, I, I would recommend inserting the sections that causes the delay. So, because it's not necessarily the process of reapportionment that necessarily causes delayed voting. It's the charter section 3-103 and 16-122.
So what would be your suggestion?
So instead of that, the final report include the commission's significant concern that the revised charter of the city and county of Honolulu, section 3-103 and 16-122 necessarily causes delayed voting.
Have necessarily results in delayed voting, not necessarily
Agreed.
causes.
Can you put the words back up? Sorry.
Oh, no, they're working.
Oh, should I come over there? Hang on here.
Yeah, I know. You know, I wanted him to come to our men's group. He said he was gonna try to come, but he told me Rex needs to go to that. Oh, well,
Sorry, can you just say the revised charter?
Sad. I think we have to remove the term reapportionment, right? Not sit right.
Yeah, that was my intent, was to remove reapportionment, sorry.
I think it should be unnecessarily results. So what happens, when you get attorneys in a room. Well, I'm not an attorney, I'm a judge, but anyway. You guys know the joke. Joke is, attorneys are rotten. They're the cause of all the trouble in the world, but not judges. Okay, everybody get a chance to. Okay, members, are there any objections to the language as now stated? Any more edits? If not, then I recommend, I would move that we adopt the proposed language that is now on the screen, and we submit it to staff to have it inserted in the final report.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Second the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion passes. It'll now be adopted. All right, members, we now move on to agenda number 7, scheduling for future meetings. Proud to say now that we have adopted our final redistricting plan, there will be no additional meetings. Before we sign off here, I just want to express my appreciation, my mahalo nui loa to all of you for the service that you provided. I've tried to to conduct this in a very professional and respectful manner. We have our differences, there's no doubt about it, and we will always have differences. But in any civilized and democratic society, you learn how to push through that. And of course, I think that's what makes America great. It's the fact that when there's a change in leadership, when there's a change in office, we seem, although lately you could say maybe we haven't, but we seem to be able to just move on, and that's what makes America great. I saw that with you all here. We had our differences, no doubt about it. But we pushed through and we accomplished what we needed to accomplish. Words may have been said that we didn't agree upon or we felt was a little too offensive, but we pushed on it, okay? And I'm sure you all will shake hands on that and understand where you're all coming from. It gets emotional at times, and sometimes it feels personal, but I can assure you, Vice Chair, that it's, if we're in Hawaii and we maintain what we say we practice, which is aloha, it should never get to that point, okay? No matter what our ideology is or anything else. I've been blessed with the opportunity to be a public servant in many different ways, and I can tell you this has been I've been very honored and humbled to be your chair. I know we will make our mark on the city in the next 10 years, but that's not what we were here for. We were here not to make a mark, but to just do the people's work, and I think we've done that. So I applaud all of you guys for what you've done, every single one of you. Your comments were timely, your comments were significant, your comments had a lot of merit to it, and likewise the people who testified. I hope that everybody feels that way, that their testimony and whether it was oral or written was taken into consideration, and whether or not it was adopted doesn't mean that it wasn't considered. So again, and last but not least, I want to thank the staff. They've just been tremendous. Rex, Doris, everybody, you guys have been tremendous. And of course, Corporation Counsel over there coming and staying as late as you guys do. Thank you for what you've done. And of course, the crew for Alelo. I think you went through, I don't know, 6 sessions with us or whatever it was. And, it really made a difference, I believe, in regards to, participation. If you look at the prior commission meetings, whether it was live or whether it was online, I think we had a lot of people engaged. And of course, as was mentioned, social media wasn't around for that long. It is now, and of course, it makes a difference. So again, I want to thank you all. You guys made this real simple for us in the sense of the process, and I appreciate that. As a result of that, our work is done here. Can I get a motion?
Commissioner Douglas, I move to adjourn.
I second.
Any
Commissioner
opposed?
No.
All right. Motion is adjourned. Meeting is adjourned.